So apparently, Japanese developer Sakurai says the Japanese developers should avoid trying to appeal to Western states. Apparently, this is from the publication NintendoLife.com. Here on Twitter, the post itself has, a decent amount of engagement and such. Now, as to my opinion about this makes absolute sense to me. I don't see any reason why the Japanese developers, who already have a methodology of making their games, should bother with appealing to Western tastes when in reality, they have people in the West that enjoy exactly what it is that they're making. So he's not saying anything controversial or groundbreaking or, up and this shouldn't even have been said, but apparently has to be said because for some strange reason, it appears that, creativity in the gaming scene is kind of weird. Now, you got to say there's all kinds of different, paradigms that you can take into account here when you're talking about this. For instance, Super Mario, you can think about, say, one game that comes to mind when I actually talk about, or when I actually look at, the Japanese developers and the way they actually go ahead and, channel their games is a game like Nier Automata. Nier Automata basically is one of those games that carries a lot of interesting themes. It does have Western tropes in it. That's another crazy thing about Nier Automata, but it carries fundamentally that style that you'll see in the Japanese video game, side of things. Now, the game does a good job in depicting exactly what it is it wants to depict, maintains its core style to the Japanese taste, but has a lot of Western, in terms of, I will say, exception and reception to it, or acceptance. I say exception, acceptance and reception to it. So he says, creator Masahiro Sakurai was recently awarded the Art Encouragement Prize from the Japanese government's Agency for Cultural Affairs for his remarkable achievement with the Masahiro Sakurai on Creating Games YouTube channel. He made a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel went nuts. Apparently, he just posted a freaking big-time devlog. As part of that, he conducted an interview with Antax, thanks Automaton, in which he stressed a need for Japanese developers to focus on creating games with domestic appeal rather than trying to cater to Western tastes. Now, this is something that most Japanese developers have done, even though many of them still make games that have a lot of Western tropes and art. I mean, Elden Ring, if you look at it and you don't see the samurai class, you would almost never believe that a Japanese developer actually made that game. So again, like I said, this isn't even something that needs to be said, but apparently we've gone to a point where it actually has to be said. You look at even, say, let's just even remove Japan from the equation for a short bit and look at even the developers coming from China and how they are making their games. And their games are very much representative of how you would see the Chinese industry. Asia is coming in with the art right now, and I think they're going to be the winners of this whole conversation if the West is not going to dive deep into, what Western tropes have already been built on. I'm not saying that Asian tropes are superior. I'm not saying that the Chinese or Japanese tropes are superior. I'm just saying that it's funny because the Western tropes had always had their own influence, and even the folk in Asia had looked up to Western tropes until they started to dilute them lately in the Western gaming scene. So Western developers never really, focused on diving into Western themes of heroes and all of those things, like how they basically took out Batman and Suicide Squad Justice League, killed the Justice League. Not exactly your most Western trope. That's more like a nihilistic postmodern framework where you basically off your main character that has basically been admired for many years. That's not how you do things. He goes on to say that the success, these are my opinions anyways. You can critique all you want, but I'm just stating what, I think I see. He goes on to say the success of Japanese games in the West had led many teams in the region to join a growing trend of making Americanized works. However, he doesn't necessarily believe that Western gamers are looking for this, obviously, stating, I think that they seek the uniqueness and fun of Japanese games. Yeah, we knew that. His comment comes at an interesting time for Silent Hill fans of all people. Though not relevant for the Switch, as such, maybe the Switch 2 though, The recent transmitter broadcast for Silent Hill F highlighted a desire to bring the series back to its Japanese roots, with series producer Motoi Okamoto stating, as Silent Hill was based in the West for the longest time, it still did not remove the creativity and the unique signature of what a Japanese developer could do. Kojima based the Metal Gear stuff on Western tropes for the longest time. It felt like the Japanese influence was fading. As such, the latest entry will be the first to take place solely in Japan. Masahiro Sakurai stressed that his opinion is just one way of looking at the topic, but we think it's a pretty sound approach. We love Japanese games here at Nintendo Live because they're so distinctly Japanese, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Funny though that Mario is not a Japanese character, but he's asking for or saying that this needs to be emphasized. Isn't that crazy though? Isn't that crazy that he that makes a character that is basically, if you look at it from any estimation, Western, is saying that Japanese developers need to continue to double down on their own ways as doing things, right? I didn't even read this particular paragraph to you guys. It said this. It says, when asked how Japan can keep up with the booming markets in regions such as China, Sakurai simply stated, it's not really my own idea, but an industry trend. I think Japanese people should keep pursuing the things that Japanese people like. Now, Japan is that kind of culture. It's not the culture that is all about homogenization and, all of that. No. Japanese culture is a traditional culture at its core, right? So what makes Japanese culture appealing in the West is simply because of that. It's just weird, but that's how I see it. Because as for me, someone who's from, Western African, region and the culture there, the Western culture and its tropes in terms of the classics, what I saw growing up in the 90s, right, that were, basically influenced by the late 80s, are things that I've always kind of understood as Western culture in the American sense. This is not saying that, Western culture is only based on American tropes. It was nice to be able to see other Western cultural tropes and even see some Eastern European tropes that I also like and I also enjoy. But what are the shared themes between these tropes as a whole? It's that they're authentic, they're grounded, they do not dilute the concepts, and they're not polluted by nihilistic tropes. If you can basically make your games do that, you can tell your stories in that way, you're going to see fans show up. Straight up. This is why I fear for Intergalactic and the Heretic Prophet. I already think that Neil Druckmann is on this tirade to burn down Naughty Dog by doing what Rocksteady did, basically, or at least subverting everything. I wish him good luck. It's his story to tell. Let him tell it. But how are the audiences going to take it? Because I remember when Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League finalized, I remember looking at a Sherlock Holmes issue 2, which many of you may or may not know, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle decided to kill off Sherlock Holmes, and that didn't pan out well. They had to bring him back. So, not saying that Japanese creators don't do that with their protagonists. Not saying that. But some protagonists trump some other protagonists that you can just mess around with, in my opinion. But it is what it is. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. Hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.